Hey, welcome to week 10, the week which we talk about, discuss, write about our last chapter, which is chapter 9. If you have your textbook with you, I want you to grab it and open it up and flip it open to page 289 just for a moment. So our last week of kind of the regular term, next week is finals. So we have our last quiz and our last two discussion boards this week. So the last week of the term probably isn't the best time to make a suggestion about reading strategies, but hey, better late than never. When I read an essay or a book of some sort, I will certainly flip through the table of contents. I will read the introduction first, but I will also oftentimes read the conclusion as well too. Oftentimes the conclusion is going to restate claims made in the introduction, but you also get some additional sorts of meat that came out of the body of the book, which wasn't stated in the introduction. In our book, each of the chapters has a conclusion. Also, on the kind of the first 2 pages of the chapter, there's a great storyline section. And basically the storylines are kind of bullet points, and they give 1 or 2 sentence summaries of each of the major sections in the chapter. But I would suggest that before you read this chapter, chapter 9, that you take a moment to actually read the conclusion first. It's not very long, but the authors make some interesting claims and share some claims put forward by other historians, and I wanted to talk about some of those claims. This chapter is called The Consolidation of Europe, 1100 to 1250, and you can see that when you think about a consolidation, think of it in terms of existing forces or dynamics that are kind of disparate, independent, that begin to come together to create something new. That's what I think of consolidation. And in that conclusion, the authors share this idea that historians like to find origins for forces and dynamics, and so the claim is made that you can see the origins, right, of our modern present world controlled by states and other sorts of things in this period, this 1100 to 1250 period. So I want to talk about 4 arguments that are made there. The first one is we see the consolidation of geopolitics during this time. And so if you flip over to page 289 and you look at that map there, you can see a map that is beginning to look recognizable to one today. You can see the Kingdom of England, right, very recognizable today. France, Kingdom of France looks pretty small, but over the period covered by this chapter, leading up to about the 1300, basically France is going to expand to encompass that whole area west and then north of the rust-colored squiggly lines there. So it's going to become recognizable as France. On the next page, you'll see Spain, right, looking very recognizable. Over the period covered in this chapter, Spain is slowly pushing Muslims out of Europe and into North Africa. Kingdom of Poland, I'm back on this map in 289, Kingdom of Poland, Kingdom of Hungary, and then of course you get this huge chunk, the Holy Roman Empire, which is basically Germany, plus some other states, but basically Germany. Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, you can see down there at the bottom of Italy as well too, and then the Papal States. So a Europe that is becoming recognizable, geopolitical consolidation that's going on. When you think about the Catholic Church, you typically don't think of it as a major holder of territory. Vatican City, where the Pope lives, is an independent city-state, but it's only 110 acres, so basically 110 football fields, not a huge territory. But actually the Papal States were, as you can see, a pretty sizable chunk of Italy that were controlled by the Pope. since about the 8th century, but they're only nominally controlled by the Pope for a couple centuries. Basically, the Holy Roman Emperor saw the Papal States as really an extension of the empire. But it's during this period covered in this chapter, in the late 1100s, that the Papal States becomes independent of the Holy Roman Empire. And so now the papacy can claim to not only be a religious power, but it has temporal power as well too, because it holds territory, controls territory. So kind of one piece of evidence for this kind of consolidation of religious consolidation of the church that's going on. The book also talks about last chapter, you learned about the Crusades. There's more about the Crusades in this chapter as well too, as well as kind of the expansion of the Crusade strategy. And the idea is conquest in the name of religion, in the name of God, but not necessarily limited to just the conquest of Muslims, but spreads throughout and beyond the borders of Europe. So everyone is pursuing colonial efforts in the name of God. Of course, in a couple centuries, with the discovery of the Americas, we're going to see the Catholic Church, pursue this kind of crusade-like colonialism in the Americas. We also see kind of further consolidation in the church, the creation of canon law. Catholic Church has been around for nearly 1,000 years at this time, by this period of time that we're covering in this chapter. And laws have been created over that period of time. But it's during this period of time, 13th century, that theologians come together and review all those laws, organize it, get rid of some, improve others, and create what's called canon law, kind of the official law of the Catholic Church. And the Pope sends out legal representatives throughout its religious realm, individuals who can interpret canon law. The book talks about Thomas Aquinas, who lives during this time, writes during this time, the greatest Catholic theologian that's ever been. Basically, Catholic theology is the theology that Thomas Aquinas came up with. So, kind of legal consolidation, theological consolidation as well too. The book also talks about the rise of new monasteries and the seeking out of heterodoxy, so heresy. Basically exterminating, excommunicating those individuals, those ideas that do not align with church doctrine. So the church is becoming quite powerful during this period of time. Another thing the book talks about is education. And if you flip over to page 312, there's a nice little map here of the rise and spread of the university system. And the first universities, the late 12th century, founded in Bologna, in present-day Italy, Paris in France, and then in London, England. But over the next couple centuries, as you can see, they spread throughout Europe. Literally dozens of universities open up during this period of time. So this real push for educating those individuals who can, of course, afford it. The book talks about that the Pope establishes in each cathedral funding for at least one teacher who is to teach all comers, right? No matter whether poor or rich. Of course, if you're a farmer, you live too far away from the cathedral and probably can't sacrifice your kid to go to school. So even during this time, it was basically members of the middle class and wealthy who are going to be sending their kids to be educated at the cathedral school. But at least the education is there. Of course, education is so important today and has been for centuries. And with the rise of the university system and really kind of a high school system during this period of time. And then the last kind of theme is kind of an economic consolidation. 90% of what are called towns during this period have populations of no more than 1,000. So pretty small towns during this period of time. There are a couple anomalies, right? A couple towns that have populations in the tens of thousands. The book talks about Venice and Florence, which have populations of 100,000. So pretty good, sizable city. And what we're seeing during this period is just kind of the rise and development and proliferation of cities. We certainly don't have the domination of an urban culture yet like we do today. Think about urban culture versus rural culture today. It's really urban culture that dominates. That's not going to happen for centuries, but we see the rise of cities, right? Large cities during this period of time. Guilds, the book talks about guilds, right? So guilds are basically kind of labor unions in these cities. So a group of individuals who come together to kind of protect an industry. Could be cabinet making, could be brewing, could be ironworks. Kind of set up a monopoly, limit the competition, make sure that any person who, say, the cabinet maker has to be a member of the guild, otherwise he is not going to be able to create any kind of a cabinet. They set prices as well too. So kind of rise of labor unions. So the importance of non-farming labor. We start seeing that during this period of time. The other kind of labor that's important is that of merchants. Right? There really isn't a good map in this chapter that shows the kind of proliferation of trade networks. But if you flip over to page 329 in the next chapter, you'll see a nice little map which shows really the medieval world system is what it shows. A trade system that really expands from present-day Indonesia all the way up to Iceland. So, by the year 1300, theoretically, an individual who lived in Iceland could order some, spice or some other sort of product that came out of Indonesia. And you could see it would pass through these various networks and find its way eventually all the way to Iceland. Certainly take a while and it'd be very expensive, but this trade network shows that it's very possible. So with the rise of cities and the rise of these trade networks, we're seeing trade expand and proliferate during this time. Of course, you think about the importance of global trade today as well too. So kind of four sorts of themes, all right, kind of consolidations that are happening during this time that historians kind of see as kind of a starting point, launching of kind of major dynamics that are going to control the West for many centuries to come. So as I said before, our typical quiz that we have this week, and then the 2 discussion boards, and that'll take us through this week. So enjoy. Have a good week.